Welcome to the time of your life, the show where I ask, what would you do if you won a $2 billion lottery? With me today, I've got Charles, a former coworker of mine, adventurer and collector of memories. My name's David Plouffe. I'm your host. Let's get started.
I'm very excited to be here today.
Perfect. Yeah. So about a week ago, you were walking down the street, and out of the corner of your eye, you saw a lottery ticket on the ground. You picked it up. You saw that it was for yesterday. You checked the numbers. You pulled out your phone, and 6-7 numbers match. You won a $2 billion lottery. You went to the lottery office, claimed your winnings, called a lawyer, got all of your finances in order. Everything is as secure as it possibly can be. You got a call 10 minutes ago that everything is settled and the funds are in your bank account, ready to go. The time is 6:57. We're in Ferndale, Michigan. What do you do first?
You know, what's really interesting is, all the regular goals you would have, right? All other things you'd want to do that, like, hey, I want to buy this thing. I want to do this with my money. A lot of those kind of almost go out the window in a way. Like you're thinking like, oh, I could get anything I want. I could have whatever I want. I could buy this car. I could buy that. But honestly, that's kind of, once
you feel like your mind has just gone blank. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying once you have that much money, I feel like it doesn't matter anymore. Because like things kind of only matter when there is like value or some kind of struggle to get it.
Oh, I see.
Right?
So from like a philosophic perspective, you're saying that the work is what brings you the good feelings, the climb, the struggle to get there.
We can say that because here's the way to think. Here's how I, obviously being kind of reductive, saying, oh, nothing matters anymore, right? There's plenty of things you'd want to do with your money, and it's like, oh, I want to buy an airplane and learn to fly. And,
is that what you want to do?
There's our
money has turned you into a nihilist.
There are little things that you want to do. You're like, I want to try this. I want to do. You get to do all that, but it's interesting because in a way, like none of it really matters anymore. Because so I've always thought about this. I've always thought, how do you succeed? Like, what does it mean to like succeed in life for you? Like just anything, like, what does it mean like to be like succeed in something?
That's a great question. I've got two answers for you.
Yeah.
So in my book, Motivational Poetry to Inspire Action, Cultivate Peace, and Stimulate Perspective, available on Amazon.
Love the plug.
One of my poems in there, I say, success is when the things that you're supposed to do match the things that you want to do. Because I feel like in life, there are a variety of responsibilities that either get imposed upon us by ourselves or others in things, these weights that we feel that we have to do. We're supposed to eat healthy. We're supposed to, keep a clean life. We're supposed to exercise. We're supposed to, whatever these ideals that society imposes on us, when those are things that we want to do, when we understand the reasoning behind them, when we are supposed to matches our desires. For me, that's my definition of success. I also made a note in my phone a couple weeks ago. It said, success is spending more time with friends. So I've been trying to do some of that.
I really like that. So along that exact same vein, actually, I didn't have it so well thought out as you had, but I was thinking, what's interesting is that being successful, you get to pick, right? You get to pick.
Oh yeah. Come up with your own metrics.
You get to decide, maybe someone is like, I am a world-class athletic gymnast, a rhythm dancer, whatever, what have you. And that's the thing. That's the thing that measures success for you. You get to pick your hill to die on.
Is that what you want to be? You want to be a rhythm dancer?
Turns out that's
DDR?
not my thing. That's not my thing. But I feel like, the hardest thing is this, like, harkens back to the question when you're saying, hey, you have $2 billion. First of all, $2 billion is insane, right?
That's a lot. You can do a lot with that.
It's essentially unlimited money. It's actually just unlimited money unless
unless you're buying sports teams.
Yes, unless you're actually going out there and buying sports teams, it's essentially unlimited money, right?
For all intents and purposes,
you can throw that money into a stock market and never look at it, and you're making like $200 million. a year at 10% return, something like that, something insane. Just basically, let's just say for an average person who didn't have the dreams of owning sports teams, it's unlimited money.
So what do you want to do with your unlimited money?
What do I want to do with my unlimited money? See, that's the thing. The thing is, $2 billion seems like so much because it seems like there's nothing. Do you use it all in one place? You can't necessarily. Like, what would you
I hope
do?
you wouldn't spend it all in one place.
I mean, it depends on, like, now suddenly the question is then what is important to you in your life, because the money no longer matters. It's saying, hey, nothing is prohibiting you to doing anything. All the things that usually prohibit you, your excuses, those are gone.
Yeah,
right?
no
Those
more
are
excuses.
gone.
No more.
That's the main thing, is that excuses have been eliminated. It's, with that much money, it doesn't matter if you don't have X, Y, Z to get to the end of the road. You have money, it could solve the problem. So it's like, what's important to you? So I think for me, I need a goal. I need physical goals.
So that's what you do first, is like choose some goals, or you analyze. I mean, right now it seems like you're analyzing what is important.
We would have to do some goal setting, right? Because now it's no longer about physical things. It's no longer about, I need a bigger house. Yes, just buy a bigger house.
Yeah.
I need a better car. Just buy a better car.
If that's something you want. But also, there's some nuance to that, because
that seems like it gets
do you go to
fast.
the dealership? Do you go online and order things? And if you're ordering things, are you ordering them to your present address? Or do you go and get a new address first and have things? What's the logistics?
Are you talking about the logistics? Okay, no, the logistics are very important, right? First of all, you take that thing, you go to a lawyer, you set up a trust, you set up all these other things.
So all that's been
right
set
away.
up.
After all of that, like the logistics of how you're going to spend all that money, man. As far as buying things,
let's reel it in. Let's reel it into the present moment.
Yeah.
So right now it's 7:03 p.m.
Okay.
If you actually had $2 billion in your bank account,
what
let's
would
pretend
I
wasn't here.
So we're saying, like,
You're here
We're
alone.
gonna pull it all the way and say, like, not in a life decision. I mean, like, right now.
Yeah, like
within
right
this
now.
hour.
Yes.
What are you gonna do?
Yes.
Honestly, just go to the nearest bar, sit down, and have a drink by myself, and just
You go to I think the nearest bar is Applebee's. Are you going to Applebee's?
probably not going to Applebee's. Nothing wrong with Applebee's. So I'm not going there. Yeah, just go to a nearby. What would be cool? I think the best thing to do for me, I would just go to a busy bar. I want it to be busy and just go in by myself,
Like
and
a
just
sports
sit down.
bar, or
a
what?
sports bar.
A
I want
sports
everyone
bar.
else to be preoccupied, so I can just sit there and just be part of the crowd, and nobody's coming to me for anything, because I feel like as soon as people know you have that much money, you don't have that anymore.
I mean, you sit at the bar. I think the bartender would probably come up to you.
Yeah,
Do you
probably.
get a drink?
You just get a drink.
What kind of drink? What are you drinking? If you're
It's whiskey neat. This is a serious moment. You need something that
you get
burns
something
going down.
top shelf, like you get like a Blanton's or a Lagavulin.
Ooh, Lagavulin. That sounds good. I don't know what that is, but yeah, let's do that.
It's $40 or $50 a shot at most
Okay.
bars that it's available.
Well, see, you can have a lot of those now, right? You can have a
as
lot of
many as
those.
you want.
That's no longer a restriction in your life. Yeah, I think you do. I think in this moment, you would have to do that. Grab something top shelf and drink and think about it for a moment. Because I feel like
you're less than an hour into your winnings and you're already drinking alone.
I'm already drinking. Already drinking.
Not just drinking alone.
Drinking alone. See, but this is a good drinking alone. This is I need to plan, because life just got real weird.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Life just got like real existential, because now you're just suddenly like, what is everything?
Lost in your mind.
What is everything?
What's going on?
What even matters right now? Because nothing, all the things that mattered yesterday, almost none of those things, except for your family and your friends.
I would hope so, yeah.
Almost none of those mundane things that you wake up to matters. It just doesn't. You don't have to show up to anything ever, basically, right?
Yeah, you could not. It depends on what are your new goals.
My new goals
Are they relational goals?
I
Are they
feel like they're
goals with
relational. I
people?
feel like they're goals with people. I think that's what makes, just thinking about my life, the things I remember the most, the things that to this day are the most important to me, is not when I bought that new thing, got that new toy. It's always like, hey, I had this cool experience in this cool place with these cool people. Right? That's always the things I'll always remember, those kind of situations, right?
Well, here's a question for you. Now, with your newfound wealth, do you tell your friends and or family that you're a multi-billionaire?
No. Oh, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Do you quit your job?
I think you'd have to quit your job.
You'd have to quit.
You'd have to quit your job.
Do you give them notice?
Yeah, I think I would. I think I would because I need some time to plan and figure things out. I would give notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would. I think not. I don't personally care if you give notice or not, but like it keeps you grounded for those 2 weeks. You're still a part of the normal world because as soon as that's over, you don't have to participate. You actually you don't have to participate.
So you're at the bar.
Yeah.
You're drinking your top shelf whiskey, and you're thinking, "I've got to work in the morning." Still.
Yep.
Because you owe it to your coworkers. You don't want to leave them stranded.
Nah, that's not even it. I feel like I would force myself to do it.
Well, you told me you enjoy your job.
I love my job. I do love my job. But I feel like, and there's another discussion there. I love my job. I'm not going to do it for free. Right?
Right.
But at the same time, I'm basically working for free because
the money that you're receiving doesn't impact
money
your
is
life.
no longer. Here's the thing.
It won't motivate you to do
right.
anything.
So when you're saying like you have $2 billion, you're asking what would you do if you had $2 billion? What I'm interpreting in my head, maybe I'm answering it in a way that maybe you weren't going for because you're like, oh, but what would you do hour by hour? What would you buy?
Yeah.
Like for me, I'm like, oh, if I had $2 billion, no, you don't understand. If I have $2 billion, I no longer have things. I no longer have goals.
You give up.
No. That's what I mean, though. It's like you're telling me, like, hey, what if? So, and basically, to me, the question of what happens when you win $2 billion is the same as saying, what happens if money is no longer a motivation in your life?
Precisely.
That changes everything, right? That's the real question.
Would you say that right now? Would you say that right now money is a large motivation in your life?
It's a decent motivation, right? Yeah. It's a decently sized motivation.
So you can maintain your lifestyle, maintain the house that you have,
maintain your lifestyle, and secure a future, right? Just making sure that tomorrow, if anything were to happen, you're fine, and the days after that, everything is okay. Right? And then insofar as you're doing that, you feel like, hey, if my job is fun, if I feel fulfilled, those are all bonuses, right? But are you like saying like, if you happen to be like an accountant, do you just be like, man, I live for tax season. I love my job, but you know what really does it for me? Tax season. I love tax season. Let's go, right?
There may be, there's a lot of interesting people out there. I feel like there may be someone that gets excited over that.
That's possible. I feel bad for them though.
I don't know if that's the type of thing that is like naturally innate in any person. It seems more of like a learned love, perhaps from the association of, maybe the money that they receive. Maybe they, some people like puzzles, you could view it as like a math puzzle or something like that.
What's really interesting is I read a book a few months ago. The name of this book is something like So Good They Can't Ignore You. And one of the theses of this book is that the whole idea that you need to be passionate about what you do for work. Like just like you go somewhere and you're like, oh man, I'm not passionate about this. You've been there for 3 months. You're not passionate about this. And a lot of times people are like, I should quit. Right? And that whole book is saying, hey, this whole idea that you need to immediately just walk into a job, be passionate about what you're doing is actually not even an old concept. It's something that was like kind of marketed in the 70s or the 80s. Because nobody grows up saying, I want to be a venture capitalist, or nobody says I grow up and I'm a site reliability engineer. No one ever says I want to be a site reliability engineer.
Well, you and I worked at Starbucks together. Yeah. And I feel like that was something that Starbucks employed. They're like, we want our employees to be passionate. Yeah. We want to hire people who are passionate about the job, passionate about coffee. And the conclusion that I reached was that was just an excuse to pay people less.
I always thought so too. But the whole idea of being passionate about your job is that I'm very passionate about my job. I love my job. There's a lot of people that are very passionate about their jobs that are accountants, right? Growing up, no kids like, when I grow up, I want to be an accountant. I'm really passionate about accounting, or really passionate about clean energy VC money, like venture capital. Oh man, I love that stuff. Growing up, nobody says that, but you become passionate.
So what do you think? Yeah, what do you think? Where do your passions lie then, if not with? So I think these things.
Passion is something that you get for something because you worked hard at it and you got good at it.
It's
and
cultivated. It's grown
cultivated
over time.
As you get better at that thing, you're like, man, I'm kind of good at this. Like it was hard, but I've achieved something and I'm kind of good at it now. That's where that passion comes.
To be good at things.
Feels good to be good. Absolutely. That's what it is. It feels good to be good. Right. And now, like, so when you take that motivation away from work and you're saying you no longer have that, then why work? And you know what I mean? You don't have that passion, because at the end of the day, the motivation is making money.
Well, it's interesting. I was listening to a lecture by, I think it was Daniel Pink, and he's done a lot of research on like time and just different things that motivate people to work and like the motivations that we have. And he covers a broad spectrum of topics. And one of the things that he talks about is this study that was done on children where they're given art supplies, and there's two groups. One of them is just given art supplies and they're told, if you want to draw, make art if you want to make art. And the other group is told, make art if you want to make art, and we'll give you like a gold sticker for making art. And so, the one group of kids just draws with no motivation and they make art because they're little kids and they like to make art. The other group draws and they get a sticker at the end. They repeat the experiment a week later and take away the reward for the group that had a reward, and they stop drawing. But the group that initially never had a reward, they just draw because they like to draw.
Yep.
And he's saying that like people will do things without a reward. Like the reward of doing something itself, there doesn't have to be this external motivation, but if that external motivation exists and then is taken away, it can demotivate people.
Exactly.
And make people discouraged.
Exactly. And I think there's a lot of technical fields where that's the case. That is the case, because how many other passions do you have that lends itself into a job? Like I love ice skating. Okay. You're going to be a figure skater. Are you going to be an Olympic skater? Are you going to play hockey?
Well, that's another interesting question of like, is it worth doing something to not be the best at it?
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it is. Of course it is. But then it's not a job, and then you don't have the motivation.
Right,
and then, yes, you can be passionate about something and do something, but then you're saying you're taking money away from it. So it makes it.
So would you
do it in the first place?
In your life, when money is totally removed as a reward, what do you do?
I want to do cool shit, right? I want to, I think we both had a friend that we knew back in when we worked together at Starbucks, and he pushed me to start climbing, right? So I was like really big into climbing for quite a while. I still kind of am, but I've been kind of busy lately. But one of the things I took away from that is that the first time I did it, I was so bad, so scared. Just everything about it seemed like, this is not me. I can't do this. This is awful. I'm like about to cry, right? I'm like, this was
awful. Like real life climbing or in a gym? Like
this was a first time in a gym. It was
wall.
that bad.
Wow.
I'm afraid of heights. I'm scared of heights, right? But like what happened is afterwards the adrenaline kicks in. You're like, wow, this is kind of cool. Like this is pretty
And of course
cool.
You're wearing a harness and everything's safe. And,
everything is safe. You have to try pretty hard to get hurt, right? Everything is pretty safe. But I kept doing it for a while. I'm like, the idea of climbing at a gym is pretty gamified. They have like ratings. You get a little better, and you're solving puzzles. You're working your body a little bit to try to figure out how to get into those holds and those positions to do that thing to get to the top. And then you keep doing
literally get to the top.
Literally get to the
literally
top, right?
get to the top.
And you keep getting that feedback of reward. And at some point you're like, damn, I'm getting pretty okay at this.
Nice.
And maybe I'm not so scared of the heights anymore. And then I remember this because the first time it was like, I wanted to climb something outside, and we went somewhere cool and we climbed something outdoors, right? And I was like, wow, this is so cool. This is so cool. We set a goal. We set like an expedition. We were like, hey, we want to summit the Grand Teton in Wyoming, in Jackson Hole. Insane, right? You got to start at 2 a.m., backpack with a bunch of people before the sun's up. And you got to race the sun up to the top before you come back down, right? And I remember doing it and being like, wow, this is a journey. This is like an all day 15-hour event. Some people sleep halfway up, but we decided, you know what? We're going to do it in one go. We're going to go all the way up, all the way down. Right. And I remember thinking like, this is so cool because this is something that isn't like transient. It's not something that goes away. It's not like, oh, I did this, got a great bonus at work, and I spent it on something dumb and it's gone. Right. This is like, this mountain was here way before me. It's going to be here way after I'm gone. But, you know, me, as this little mortal being, this little ant on this side of this mountain, I was able to conquer it. I was able to do this thing that is always going to be there. And it's always an achievement that I have. Right.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And sometimes I'm in meetings with people that are like far above me in my senior, like vice presidents and stuff. And I'm like, and people are like, wow, how are you just able to talk so calmly in a meeting and talk about things? Like, I was hanging off a mountain, like, like 12, 13,000 feet. This is just some dude. Like, this guy is just going to go and, you know, make some dinner and do his thing and pick up his kids from school.
Yeah,
and
you've got a new reference point.
That's it. My reference point for what freaks me out has drastically
shifted. The bar
shifted.
Is raised.
The bar is raised. It's like, I'm not really going to be nervous talking to you. It just doesn't, you know, it's whatever. I understand where you're coming from. You have a pretty normal life and you're doing your normal thing, and that's great. And I'm not gonna hold you higher than that, right?
Well, that's an interesting predicament I've found myself in few times where I've gone on some cool adventures. And I love, that taste of collecting a memory, of going somewhere with people that are close to you or maybe not close to you, but are after the experience. And you go on a long hike, or you go, you know, in my case, to like a cool waterfall or something together and experience this thing. And then you come like back. The idea of coming back, which in reality, you know, we're always moving forward through time.
Right.
There is no back. You know, wherever you end up, it's a new place that is ahead of where you started.
Yep.
But the idea of like coming back to what's familiar, what you maybe consider home, or just familiarity, and wanting to share those memories with others. And it feels so good to reminisce. It feels so good to be like lost in the nostalgia. And even with the people that you've gone on the adventures
that's
on.
half
like,
the fun.
Oh, you remember?
That's half the fun, is grabbing a beer and be like, wow, remember that moment? Remember that moment where you thought you were going to die? How funny was that? You didn't. So everything's cool, right?
Yeah, remember being on the side of the mountain. And the more time you spend in your reminiscing, the less time you spend creating new memories and going on more adventures. And you can almost get stuck in this loop of like being stuck in the past, like the dad that wins his high school football tournament and
he's
never
still
lets
talking about
it go.
Years after. No, I think everyone is always somewhat, you know, at risk of doing that, living whatever you thought were your heydays, you know, instead of continuing to make progress, continuing to chase that feeling.
Well, how do you think you stay in your prime? How do you think you keep the ball rolling?
How do you keep the ball rolling? I always think like, not to make it so simple, but I'm like, you know, am I someone that I would want to get to know? Right? If all I can talk about is work all the time, I just don't know if that, you know, crosses the bar anymore. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, because like not everyone needs their moment in the sun to literally be hanging over a cliff or something like that, right? That doesn't have to be what everyone strives for, right? You know, some people have different goals, and maybe they want to start a family, and they're like, oh, that moment I saw my kid or whatever. What a great! Don't necessarily keep trying to have kids to get that moment, but don't chase it. Don't chase it.
All right,
way.
Gotta have another kid. Okay, here we go. Well, you want that moment again, don't you?
You want that moment again. Maybe at that point, just watch the tapes. You know, it's fine. But you know, and the thing is, the seeking constant is something that doesn't exist. Things don't stay the same. You don't stay the same. I don't stay the same. And I might wake up tomorrow, I might feel exactly the same. But in some way, in some minute way, you're either slipping or you are getting a little bit better. That's it.
Yeah,
right?
You're always, nothing is ever stagnant.
Nothing is ever
Everything
static.
is
You just can't
always
see the
changing.
changes. You just can't see those changes. So a lot of times, and it's always hard, like how do you stay fit? How do you keep yourself active? How do you do things still, right? And part of that is just like keeping in mind that every little thing you do today is going to somehow, you're going to wake up somehow tomorrow, and that bundle of statistics about your body has either gotten a little better or a little bit worse.
Yeah.
And, at some point it's going to go down, but until then you can stave that off. You can do what you can to move forward. And I think if you start from there, what I would think of as like the fundamentals of just your body and your mind, then it's a lot easier to be like, you know what, I feel good and I'm bored and now I need to do something cool again.
Do you think that boredom is a big motivator?
For me, absolutely. Boredom is a really, really big motivator, right? It's because you feel like you got more in you. You got more you can do. There's this many hours in the clock, and then you get home and you're laying in bed and you're like, man, well, I can do more.
It doesn't really feel good to be bored. I would classify boredom as kind of like a negative or bad feeling. Like you want to be doing something, you either want to be entertained or you want to be active or productive or any of these qualities. And in our current society, entertainment is so easily accessible that boredom can almost be erased. It depends, right? Because it's dangerous. I feel like it's dangerous.
It gets, what I discovered is like, it's kind of like a drug, right? It doesn't hit the same after a while. You can watch that Netflix, right? And the first few times you watch it, you're like, man, this is great. I can keep binging another episode, right? I can keep going. And then, a few months go by and you're just like, you know what? This is kind of old. It's a brand new show, but it is. Oh, yeah. I know what's going to happen.
It will not give you the same.
Yeah. You're just not going to get that same rush anymore.
It doesn't feel good to just constantly be watching. But I'll find that sometimes where I might be in an adventurous mood or want to do something, go out, have, real life interactions with people. And whether that is, going on a long hike or, a camping trip or even just hanging out, going to a bar or something.
Yep.
And there will be friends that I have who are stuck in that loop. And you say, "Oh, I'm just gonna stay home. I've got some shows to watch. I gotta catch up on my."
I can't do that. That would drive me absolutely nuts. Like it really does drive me nuts because, what was really great about climbing for me is like when I really got into it, I got into the best shape I've ever been in my life. And the way I did that is because, just going to the gym and, putting heavy object down, picking heavy object up, putting heavy object down for X amount of reps. I can't do that. I can do that. But I
physically can do that.
I physically can and have done that.
And don't want to.
But what it is that
it's
kind
not
of
engaging enough.
It has to be a means to an end. So for me, I was going to the gym regularly, nonstop. I was going to the climbing gym 5 days a week for 4 hours. I was there for like 20 to 30 hours a week, right? For a while. And a lot of that is like, the end is that I can't climb this now. But if I got better, I could climb it tomorrow.
I think there's also a part of that with climbing gyms specifically. I would say there's probably a good community of people that are there, if not every day, consistently, where you'll see the same people, and it's probably a pretty tight community of people who are interested in the same things as you. And so now you've got an added motivation of you're not only going to the climbing gym to climb, but you're going to see those people that who may be past or future friends.
There's a companionship, like camaraderie.
Right.
It's a whole social experience. Which, and that only goes to reinforce what you're doing in the first place and why you want to get better. Which, if certain parts of you are weak, now you want to pick heavy object up, put heavy object down, because it's not just I can look better. It's I can climb that thing now. That thing I wasn't able to do, now I can do it. Like you have this feedback loop is so. It feels almost immediate. It feels great.
Do you feel as if there's a strong correlation between being healthy and being happy or feeling good?
Yeah, I think, and I think being healthy is more than just being physically fit. It's your mental health as well. It's a lot your mental health, right? You have to be in a right place to accept the right kind of experiences.
Yeah.
Right? Because opportunity, they say, is an open window, whatever.
Do they say that?
I think they say something like that.
Open door?
Open
Maybe?
Door, whatever.
Probably both.
Something like that, right? But I think the takeaway for that is that, and
maybe that's love. Love is an open door.
and I think opportunity is the same thing. Some people call opportunity by a different name, and some people call it, they say luck. I've heard that. I've heard someone say, like, you're so lucky all the time. How did all these good things happen to you? How did all these opportunities fall in your lap, right? How are you so lucky? And I'm like, I don't think, like, yeah, some random luck exists, but I don't think any one person on average is way more lucky than anyone else. I think what it is you have to be in the right mindset. You have to be mentally kind of healthy enough to realize when opportunities are coming along.
And you have to be in the right place. You know,
right place, yeah.
There seldom will be opportunities presented to you if you're sitting on your couch in your home.
Correct. Seldom will opportunities come to you in your house, right? So you do have to be in the right place, but you can be in a right place and decide, I don't want to talk to anyone today.
Yeah.
Right?
Like
Not
you at the bar contemplating your multi-billion.
My multi-billion dollars windfall. I'm like, I don't want to talk to anyone right now. But that's different. I think you don't talk to anyone right then. I don't think there's anything.
How long do you wait? How long do you sit in meditation?
I think a week. No, you know what?
In
your
isolation.
Your notice period. Your
okay,
2 week notice
so
period.
you work out your 2 weeks.
Yep.
And then last day of your job, you've got all of the rest of your life potentially free, open, clear. How do you organize that? And one thing that I've found particularly interesting is the dynamics of sleep, where if you have a job, at least in my experience, there is like an internal, like you almost feel an obligation to sleep, where I know I'm going to have to be alert and awake, X amount of hours from now, I ought to go to sleep at this time. When that's totally eliminated, how do you balance?
I don't. I can already tell you right now, I don't. I know that I don't, right? Because so much of me sleeping in the past like decade I've had these moments where it's like it's a catch-22. I lay down in my bed and I can't sleep. Why can't I sleep? I can't sleep because I'm anxious about the fact that I have to wake up soon. Right? Yeah. That was the whole thing. It's like, I can't sleep right now because I'm so anxious that I have to wake up in 5 hours, in 4 hours, in 3 hours. You know what? Fuck it. We're not sleeping. Yeah.
So let's say you're planning some adventures. You're going climbing with your friends, 2 a.m. You got to wake up to make this trail. On something like that, how do you think?
That does happen. That did happen.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, I slept pretty poorly, but it was fine because you went out there early for a couple days and you had a couple days of rest. And I was pretty much sure that on the day of, I would sleep really bad. In fact, I think we were supposed to get up at like 3 a.m., but I couldn't sleep. I was up at 2 and I was like, you know what? 2 sounds great. 2 sounds great. I think Alex was really mad because he was like, I thought you said 3. I'm like, no, 2, we're going. This is it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, in that situation, you're balancing with like the sleep schedules of others and trying to wake people up and trying to get things going. Did you drink any like coffee or anything like that?
Yeah, I had a cup of coffee, but after that, it was just like water.
Yeah.
Just water. Stay hydrated.
Yeah,
for that
you don't
whole
want to
time.
be like over caffeinating yourself.
Yeah,
on a trip like that.
It's just going to be such a long, long day. But I mean, I think if I had $2 billion, I would seek to remove. This sounds bad. I think this sounds bad. I would seek to first of all remove all the responsibilities in my life.
So apart from your job, do you feel like right now you have?
No, I don't. And
okay.
Well, I mean, now I bought a house and stuff, so I'm like, I have some responsibilities now. But like, what I would want to be free, right? For a lot of people, what being free means is
be free, Charles.
Be free like a bird. Birds aren't probably not that free.
They seem pretty free. They can fly.
They fly. I mean, we associate flight with being free.
Yeah, because you can go wherever you want. You're not restricted.
Moles can
burrow.
They're free. They can burrow everywhere. They're so free.
Yeah.
Right? They're so free. They have no restrictions, just some roots every once in a while.
Well, do you think you'd be more or less free if you owned a private jet? because you could go anywhere
That's
you
true.
wanted.
You would be more
but
free.
you would be bound to the upkeep.
You would
the
have to think
maintenance.
about it. Well, no,
It
with $2
would be
billion
something-
though, you could pay someone
Well, yeah,
to
you'd be
make
paying
all
someone.
that go away.
There's still some level of logistics, like telling that person,
Yeah.
like, "Hey, you are employed by me.
The absolute minimum. Yeah. No, that's true.
Make sure my jet doesn't break." And then what if they screw up?
Yeah.
Do you fire them? Do you have to
That's a
find
you
someone else?
problem now. No. Yep, you're gonna have to figure that out. But I mean, when you have that much money, there's gonna be a whole. I assume.
Do you think people just line up?
I assume people with that much money have a very different set of logistical problems.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. There's a series of people. There's over 2,000 billionaires in the world, I think.
It's
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's a
but
significant
also
amount.
relative to the number of people that there are. It's not that many.
I would say relative to the amount of people there are, 2 billion is probably too many.
2,000?
Sorry, 2,000 is probably too many.
Yeah, well, there's that argument that like there's no ethical way to become a billionaire, which
I mean, I just don't think mathematically, like just looking at numbers, like billion sounds like a nice word and stuff, and you think you understand that. But I don't think I don't think you can actually visualize what a billion is, right? A billion.
like $1 bills stacked to the moon, something. It's
But
a lot.
That's not even like, you can't really
Well, because
fathom.
1 million is
Yeah.
1/1000th of a billion. So
Yes.
if hypothetically you bought a $5 million home,
Yep.
that would be like
It's
0.025% of your life.
It's not even close. It's not even close. But somehow, when
Be
you're
the
thinking,
equivalent of someone with $1,000 spending
Yeah.
like a quarter.
yeah. But the thing is, like, somehow in your mind you think millionaire, billionaire, and you're like, those two are somewhat similar. They're not
not
even
at all. Not
kind
at
of
all.
similar. But I think to like an average person, you're like, oh, those
Big
millionaires
number.
and billionaires, all that big number. No, the scale of a millionaire and a billionaire is just astronomical. It's astronomically different,
Well,
right?
I heard kind of an interesting statistic recently that to be in like the top 1% of earners is something like $200,000.
Depends on age group. But yeah.
And a lot of people in this like interview that I saw, they were just going on the street asking random people, like, how much do you think it takes to be in the top 1%? And a lot of people were really surprised. They thought it would be a lot more. But where I felt the people were in error was like 1% is not that extreme. That's 1 in 100. Like, 100 people.
100
so like
people.
Who's your most wealthy friend?
Yeah.
Of
100
an average
people.
people. Like many more than 100 people. So like 1 in 100 is not that
No,
rare.
as statistics, right? 1 in
Yeah.
a million. 1 in 100 is literally 1% is literally 1 in 100,
Yeah.
right? Everyone knows.
But
probably
people just
100.
hear these like very standardized
Yeah.
kind of numbers and they think, oh, that's like really small, or oh, that's really big. And I feel like a lot of people don't have like specific analysis of specific numbers, like well thought out in their brains.
Right. No,
And
that makes
because
sense.
For the most part, most people don't need to, I would say.
Yeah.
It doesn't, come into daily life.
I think it's really hard for people to take statistics and apply that to real life, right? Numbers, that's one thing. You're just saying numbers and those are statistics, but what does that mean to me, right? And you're saying one out of every 100 person you meet meets this criteria, then that becomes a little bit more real, I think, for most people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The phrasing of the question impacts the perception of it a lot.
Yeah, and I think like 200,000. I think that's like 1% of like what people earn. Because if you take like people's net worth and like 1% is something insane.
Well, that's much different also, because you could be earning that much and be in debt.
Yep.
You could, have a much higher net worth without earning, there's all different ways to spin it.
Yeah.
So you, for example, are earning nothing, but have $2 billion.
Yep. What a problem to have. It's an okay problem to have.
Minus whatever 50 or 100 for a couple shots of
Yeah.
top shelf
top shelf
whiskey.
stuff. 0.00001. Not even. And money becomes unlimited. So it's about how do you find the unknown unknowns? Like those really cool experiences that you need to have that would be awesome, but you don't even know that it's possible.
That's a
That
great
thing
question.
even exists. What are the unknown unknowns? How do you find them?
I felt that way about Burning Man.
Yeah?
Yeah. After having attended Burning Man, I was telling a coworker of mine while I was working in a restaurant about Burning Man, and they didn't know Burning Man existed.
That's weird.
And I was shocked because, that's
by this point, I think most people know what that is.
It's within, the realm of sort of popular culture. Yeah. But for someone that doesn't know that exists, that doesn't know what it is, and a lot of people know it exists, but don't know what it is. And there's, different levels of unknown. And even like the idea of knowing about something, but not having it in your awareness.
Right.
Where I can mention, 100 different festivals to people and they'll be like, oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I've heard about that before.
If you're not thinking about it in the moment, if you're not planning or preparing properly, you'll totally
Those are just words then.
Yeah.
Those are just words,
exactly.
right? Those are just words. Yeah. No, I get that. And for a lot of these things, it's just like...
So you're looking for unknown unknowns.
Unknown unknowns. What are the unknown unknowns? And by definition, you don't know what they are.
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know that you don't know this thing. And it's out there somewhere, but you don't know what it is. How are you going to get it? How are you going to figure out what that thing is? Because you look at the things you do every day and the things within the realms of your knowledge, within the realms of what you want, your awareness, your immediate awareness and consciousness of these things. What are something that's really, really cool? And you're like, well, most of those really cool things I've already, they're already a goal. There's something I've already done. But you kind of refuse to think that you know all the things, because then the world in existence seemed kind of bleak. Be like, I know all the things, and they're just all kind of whatever,
if you think you know everything, that's the end.
Yeah, and I feel like that would be the worst, to know for sure that there's no cooler experience than this one right here.
You've maxed out.
You've maxed out after this moment. It's all downhill, right? That would be such a horrible way to live, and I don't think I'd want that. But at the same time, I feel like luckily that's something you can't really achieve. You can't have all those unknown unknowns. You can't experience all of
there's a couple sides to that, because I've, had mountaintop experiences where I was literally on top of a mountain and it feels really good. And that it's like a temporary thing. That there are other mountains that you can climb.
Yep.
And there's an interesting trap that you can get caught in where it's like, oh, this would be better with X. This would be better with. Yeah. So you get to the top of the mountain. Let's say you go by yourself and you say, oh man, this was great, but this would be better with a partner.
Yeah.
And then you go and you find a companion and you go and you climb the mountain together and you go, wow, this is great. But you know what? This would be better with a dog. And then you go and you get, this would be better with a beer. This would be better with whatever it is, someone massaging my shoulder.
Bring all your friends and a dog and always pack a beer. Yeah. No, I've actually sometimes I know I'm going somewhere cool. I will pack a beer. I have done that actually.
This would be better with pineapple.
Some pineapple. But that's the thing. And a lot of times I feel like I am looking for some weird configurations of the world just to line up at that exact moment. And it can't necessarily even be recreatable. You're just there at that point in time.
It's almost better if it's not.
Yeah, it totally is, right? I found myself in Alaska a couple of years ago. The pandemic had just hit. And everyone was bailing. And I was like, you know what?
Something about the way you said that just makes it sound like you woke up in Alaska.
Well, no,
blindfolded, tied up. So anyways, I came to.
So there I was.
It was really snowy. I wasn't sure.
There I was.
Welcome
in Alaska. Just, no, what it was, everyone was like,
this was of your own volition, of your own.
Yeah, all of my own volition. I decided to go there. A friend of mine was like, it was beginning of the pandemic. Things were just getting bad. And it's everyone was hunkering down. I was like, what if I just instead of hunkering down, ran away? Right? Just ran away. Because at that point, no one was in Alaska.
No one knew what was going on. There was a lot of people doing a lot of things. Travel was starting to get cheap in certain circumstances. And Alaska is pretty remote, not very populated place.
So we went to Alaska and we didn't we're pretty bad at planning these things. Didn't really look up things and just went there, started talking to locals.
Did you have a room, or were you camping, or how was?
We camped next to streams. I think we had a room for a night.
So when you got there, did you bring like a tent and camping supplies?
Brought some camping supplies.
So that was the intention.
Brought some camping supplies and rented a car. And I think we had an Airbnb to stay at for like the first couple days to get set up in like Anchorage, right? And I remember we didn't plan things and we didn't know exactly where we were going to go. And we had talked to random locals. I think it was like next to a stream with fish. A local is like, hey, you want to go to a really cool spot? You got to go to this place called Homer Spit in Alaska.
And it was just this guy just told you.
Just this guy. He had a gun on him and he was like preparing for a bear attack.
That's pretty common
in the wild. Yeah. No, we were.
Alaska.
I mean, it was like a trout stream, so that's actually a very real thing. Like
bears.
I saw like 4 or 5 bears like right there.
Were you in fear at all? Did you have any protection?
I have a lot of bear stories.
Yeah.
We'll get back to that in a moment. Actually, the bear story isn't even in Alaska.
Oh.
It was actually the day after I summited the Tetons.
Yeah.
We went on this crazy hike to find this lake that was up high on some other peak we had saw the day prior. And we found our way up there, and on our way back, and this was super late. It was like 6:30. We started at like 8 in the morning to do this hike, and we were just on our way back. And, I had gotten lost from my friends and we just met up. We just found each other at the bottom. We were kind of slap happy. We were tired. We were ready to go home. I was laughing. I was walking and I was leading the way for some reason. And suddenly there was 4 bears in front of me, just right there, like 5 feet from me.
That's
right.
Very close.
And it was like the worst scenario because one of the worst case scenarios is to run into a mama bear with her cubs.
Yeah, you don't want to get between them.
I don't want to get between them. So it was a mama bear and 3 cubs.
Oh.
They were right there.
Was it like a brown bear, black bear?
It was a black bear. So we lived. So it was like a grizzly. We'd be dead. Everyone was following me and I was walking and they were just kind of looking at their feet, looking at me, and there was like some foliage. So no one else saw the bear. I walked up. And it's like, I always tell people this. It was like, you watch a movie, you watch like a horror movie, and the axe murderer is chasing this girl. She's running. She gets to the house, right? Door's locked. She's fumbling with her keys. It's jingling. It's going. And then she drops it. And she's like, oh my God. And she's like trying to pick it up and she's dropping it again. Right? So you're always like, what? This is so unrealistic. Who's going to drop the keys in that situation? You don't drop the keys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you always think you're going to be cooler than that. You're not.
Oh, high pressure situation.
You're actually not cooler than that. Because I saw all 4 bears and the very first thing I did, take 1 step backwards and fall on my ass.
Oh no.
Immediately planted on my ass.
And you were with people?
Yeah, I was with, my friends were behind me.
How was their reaction? Did
they weren't looking at the bear. They were looking at me. Alex was following me, and Alex immediately like starts laughing. He starts giggling. He's like, "What the fuck, dude?"
Because he just sees you falling over.
He just sees me like go and then take a step backwards and fall on my ass. And I like look at him, and I don't even remember what I said. I was trying to say bear spray, but it came out in some weird way. So he gets out the bear spray. We didn't have to use it because we all stood together and just started screaming at the bears. Right? He kind of scared them off like that. So we kind of just gave him some room and let her go away with her cubs. But that's my bear story.
Wow.
Yeah,
you lived to tell about it.
It was cool. They were actually fairly cool.
Do you consider that to be like a near-death experience?
I don't think so. The thing is, I don't think so. Right? You have like situations where things are high risk, low consequence. Then there's situations where I think low risk, high consequence. And that's what I think that is. I think that bear was not actually interested in attacking a human. They're just not. They're black bears. They're really not actually looking to attack someone. You got to do something stupid and really go out of your way to try to get killed in that situation, right? So it's low risk. The consequence is really high.
Yeah, that's it's interesting how you perceive it also, because I've had a couple of near-death experiences. Mm-hmm. One of them was on a hike on the side of a cliff where I was in a spot that I shouldn't have been, and it was raining, and I was like, this bundle of branches needs to hold my weight or I feel like I'm going to die. And in that situation, it felt like I could have died. In reality, I don't know. Maybe I probably would have like broken an arm, but it was a pretty steep cliff. I don't know. So I recount that in my memories as a near-death experience.
Yeah.
There are other experiences I've had, like driving on the highway. Someone cuts you off. like that is a near-death
That is
experience.
a near-death
That
experience,
absolutely
actually.
is.
Yes.
But in my like internal processing, it's like, that
You're so used to
asshole,
it.
It just happened. It's gone.
Yep. Your brain is used to
don't
that.
it doesn't even register.
Yeah, but the thing is, your brain is so used to that the situation has become mundane, but the consequences are extremely high, right? We did the Tetons, we summited it, but we freed it. So we actually didn't use a rope on the way up. And there's this one move, it's called the belly roll. Very scary. But I mean, the consequences are huge. You'll die because it's like this spot where you have to meander across this edge, and it's called the belly roll because there's like a little gully, and what people do is they can go down on their stomach and crawl through it. On the other end is just like a 13,000 foot fall, like free fall to the bottom. I just kind of held the side and just walked alongst it, and it's just like, the thing is, any capable regular human being, you're not going to fall from that. The actual like width of it is like a couple feet wide, maybe.
Oh, but it's just the added pressure.
It's just the added pressure. It's like, hey, I give you a sidewalk and I say, can you walk down this sidewalk? And you're like, yeah, I can walk down the sidewalk. Okay, but what if I told you if you fell off the sidewalk, you would die? 100%. You definitely would die if you fell off the sidewalk.
All of a sudden vertigo kicks in.
Yeah. All of a sudden vertigo kicks in. To walk. Sunlight becomes really real, right? And then, but like what you were describing there was actually almost a more relatable experience with walking down the sidewalk, because like you're driving a car, someone cuts you off. The consequences are you could absolutely die. But it's so mundane. It's so close to walking down a sidewalk that you don't even consider the fact that you just narrowly escaped death.
There's probably a lot of that. Like I think about that not every time, but for a while I would think about that every time that I ate food.
That you could die?
Yeah, I'm like, what if this is poison?
Possible. Don't have too many enemies, and I think that's not a thing you usually have to worry about.
No, usually not. But I like just the existential thought of like, I got really deep into some like weird paranoia for a while. And I was like, well, I don't know. Is this healthy? Is this not healthy? Like when you live in an information age and everything people are telling you, like
not to make you more worried, but I remember reading about a serial killer that eventually got caught because he wanted to get caught. And what he would do is when he traveled for work or something, it would take him across the country. He would do that travel, but then from there he would take the bus and go like 4 more states over, somewhere completely random where he has hidden like a murder kit from years ago. And then he would just randomly kill someone.
Murder kit?
Yeah.
What do you suppose is in a murder kit?
I don't know. Probably just duct
knife?
tape, some hedge trimmers. I don't know. Something to... Not sure. Some good thick rubber gloves. The kit, right?
The kit.
Some bleach, I guess?
Yeah, it just fits in a briefcase.
So he has a kit stash. And, he would fly to the other side of the country, then take a bus with no record, pay cash, go several states more over, where he had already stored like a pre-hidden kill kit. Do his thing to someone completely random who has no connection, has never met before, take the bus back, take the next flight, and go home. As if nothing happened. There's no record, no account of him going there, because he did go travel somewhere, but it's still several states over. There's like no connection. This is before cell phones, so.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about serial killers.
Yeah. You just know a lot of people that want to kill you. That's a little different.
No, I don't know anyone that wants to kill me. I hope no one wants to kill me.
Hopefully.
Kill me?
Hope not.
Yeah, I hope not either. Do you think people will be trying to kill you if you have $2 billion?
I think so. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, like, definitely.
Do you know?
Well,
you said there's
maybe not kill you, but there are definitely people that will start engineering that situation, right? You can't, there's the whole thing. If you win the lottery, well, we are talking about winning the lottery.
Yeah.
When you win the lottery, there's many states where you can set up a trust, and then the trust can claim that prize in lieu of you actually going there, because so many people...
You want to be anonymous.
Yeah, you want to be anonymous because so many people, when that's public information, you want $1 billion, $2 billion.
If not even to kill you, just to harass you.
Just to harass you, tell you totally, they could try to scam you, but they could also give you totally legitimate sob stories.
Oh, absolutely.
Totally legitimate, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, $2 billion is a lot of money, right? But you're not going to fix the world.
Yeah, you can change a lot of lives, but you can't change.
You're not going to
life.
fix.
Do you think
everyone's sob
you
story
would become particularly altruistic or
Yeah, I think so.
philanthropic with your
I
winnings?
think I would be somewhat philanthropic with my winnings, because at some point it's just like, what's the point?
Like, what's to do?
What's the point, right? And obviously, if you took care of it and you put it in a trust and stuff, you don't have to worry as much about people trying to scam you and steal stuff, right? That's whatever. But
what do you think, like, the most efficient way to be philanthropic is? Like, how do you think you could help the most people?
Yeah, I think people actually, a lot of people don't like this answer. A lot of people don't like this answer. I've actually heard a TED Talk a while ago about this too. Is that a lot of really successful charities, and I'm not like an expert about this, so if I'm wrong, so be it. But I heard a lot of charities have a lot of high overheads. They have to pay a lot of people to get a lot of things done, right?
Well, I have heard, like, I know with like Susan G. Komen specifically, that it's like more or less a scam. Like 5% goes to research.
Yeah, that
and
might
the
be
other
pretty bad.
95% is like, quote unquote, raising awareness.
Yeah, that might be a little bit. That might be like an extreme case. But
well, I don't know if it is an extreme case, because when I was just out of high school, probably like 19 or 20, I didn't have a job. I was looking for a job, like any job I could get. I found this ad on Craigslist for a call center. And it was a call center that would work on behalf of charities, and they would call thousands of people. That's all that the people work there did every day, was just make phone calls following a script saying, hey, like, we're calling on behalf of so-and-so charity. Like, would you please donate for this cause or whatever cause? And they took a 90% cut. So 10% would actually go to the charity, and they took a 90% cut to pay their employees of the call center, and like the guy that owned the call center would just, take a huge rake. And their logic behind that is, through our call center, we'll raise $1 million and they get 100,000. Whereas if they were trying to do fundraising on their own, they'd be lucky to get 10,000. And yeah, it is this like interesting sort of like, well, technically, yes, that's correct, but it just feels so like icky. It doesn't feel
the problem
right.
is, right, when you're trying to generate a lot of funds like that, I think doing things at scale becomes expensive. Just the supplies that it takes in order to scale out in any kind of way for anything. I don't necessarily think that like a 90% cut makes any kind of sense. Don't get me wrong, but I'm sure that even if it was like 50%, it could easily be fair depending on how much outreach, how many actual people you're keeping employed through this process. Because people aren't doing things for free, right? If I have $2 billion, doesn't mean that everyone else has $2 billion, right? They have to, I guess, feed themselves.
Yeah.
So, which is totally legitimate. That's totally fine. I get that. Taking a 90% cut does sound kind of sleazy.
Well, when you hear about it from the perspective of like what the charity is actually getting, you can kind of say, okay, I understand that. But as someone giving money, donating money, if you want to donate $10, $20, you want to know that that's going toward the thing that you're actually donating it toward, not a $1 of that is going to make it.
But I mean, it does make sense that the person wouldn't have even received a cold call or whatever to donate that money.
Precisely.
Had they not paid people to ask you.
Right.
So I get that. I mean, I don't know the balance books, but I don't see how it could be 90% to support the operation for 10% of the gain. So, I mean, maybe the way we're phrasing it is a bad way to phrase it.
Well, I think it was somewhat corrupt. Like, I don't think that balance was a fair balance, but that's just how that particular place operated.
Because like, there's another way to think about it. When you say that, of the money donated, only 10% ended up to a charity. It ended up to the end goal. That sounds really bad, right? But if you change the wording a little bit, you can see how I think perhaps how it works. You can say, hey, as a company, This is our expenditures. This is the money this is our revenue we brought in.
Well, sure. If you're doing it honestly and disclosing your expenditures.
I bring in this money. It's my revenue. My profit, it was only XYZ. My revenue is way more than that.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between revenue and profit. And I think as a capitalist society, we kind of understand those terms a little better. And we hear those words and we're like, oh yes, this is my revenue before I pay my employees, before I pay for the buildings and all this other stuff. This is my profit every year over year. Here's my profit. That sounds great. You're profiting this much. You're only, you're taking in $9 million, but your profit at the end of the day is $1.5 million. That's actually in the black. That's actually really good. There's nothing wrong with that. That's actually a respectable business. But if you take it in terms of charity and you're saying, and you don't think of it as this is my gross income before I pay people, then saying only 10% goes to the charity. Yeah, but you're kind of purposely putting it in a bad light just because it sounds bad when you say, I gave this money to you. But the whole business behind charity is giving money to someone. They still have the same things that a business probably does. Again, not an expert, could be wrong on the money. I'm just saying that makes sense if you put it in that, in those terms. So
now you as a billionaire, knowing these things, would you feel hesitant to just donate money directly to a charity? Would you start a nonprofit of your own? How would you organize?
I think when you're talking about money that big, that much, that you have that much money in the game, you would want to make sure that you're running it yourself. You would, right? You're not giving this money.
Running it yourself as in terms of like hiring people or being like day-to-day operations?
Starting your own foundation, right? So that you can see how the money is going. You can manage that overhead. You haven't just signed away all this money to someone else and hoping that they're managing it the best possible way.
So the question becomes, does this become like your full-time job, or like how much, because to organize a charity, nonprofit organization,
it doesn't
happen automatically.
And it takes time and it takes research and it takes, something you're passionate about.
And you as a billionaire who has made a concentrated effort to let go of all responsibilities.
Yeah, but see, this is almost good again. This has almost gone full circle.
It gives you something to do.
Because not only that, you get to, again, nobody wants to do, there's certain technical fields that no one is quote unquote just passionate about that they would just want to do for free all the time.
Yeah.
If money were removed as the end goal. But here's a way to get back into doing some of those things that maybe you want to do, maybe you were good at, maybe you were passionate about, with the overall goal being, how do I best spend this money? You have a different foundational goal, which is kind of cool, right?
Well, what do you think your foundational goal would be as far as, philanthropic work? Would you be trying to feed people, just giving money directly to people in need? Would you be funding research towards, various ends? Would you, public works, building statues of yourself, really you could go in any direction. I think, this is for the people.
I think it would be,
you're welcome.
There is a lot of issues that is too hard, or there's too much disagreement about how to solve in this world, or there's too many politics behind certain things, that the government has become kind of a bad conduit to try to do something about. And I'll give you an example. And this is something that's kind of political, but not crazy political. And I want to say homelessness.
Sure, yeah.
Homelessness, you've got a lot of opinions. So what ends up happening is not a whole lot gets done, right? Because everyone's like, oh, now you're giving away free money. And then someone else will be like, oh, now you think you can just remove people and do whatever and place people wherever you want them to go. Like,
right? Most people that I know, this is a bad example, but a lot of people have legs. Mm-hmm. Just because you put them somewhere doesn't mean they're going to stay there.
Exactly. They have legs, and the way a lot of places have been solving that problem is just California. You get a free bus. They give you a free bus ticket and bus you over to a few states.
Yeah.
And sometimes like a big triangle. You go from here, we ship you over there. They ship you over there. No, I'm not even kidding. Like that's actually how some communities deal with it, right? Because it's a sticky issue, and there is no great answer, right? Because
housing projects, becomes a whole mess, and then if people don't know how to take care of themselves,
you have the You have the people that want to do something different, that don't want to be homeless. But then you have people that are perfectly happy. They don't want anything different. They live here on Main Street, literally on the street, and they love it. And they don't want your help, and they don't want anything to do with you. They just want you to leave them alone.
Yeah. I feel like that's probably a bigger issue with like drug use. Like I feel like if someone is abusing a substance or a drug, they're more likely or less likely to have.
I mean, it's. I think that becomes really hard to to see what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? What is causality here? Because I've heard someone say, hey, I was walking around Seattle last year and there were just so many people with so many needles and stuff on the side of the road, sleeping it off, and someone said, like, it's cold and I'm hungry, right? I could be suffering here, or I can just do this and pass out and get by another day.
Oh yeah, that becomes an interesting like philosophic question of like awareness. Like if you're unaware of that you are suffering, then in your mind you are not suffering.
Yep. You can just wake up tomorrow. You've gotten by today. It's cold, it's rainy, and now you can check out.
I heard a story from a friend who was a big hiker, and on a particular hiking through trail, met another hiker that hated the rain and would drug himself every time it rained to sleep through it's like, I'll just sleep through this. Like,
but I mean, that's kind of what it is.
Drug himself,
right?
pass out in his hammock.
I mean, I feel like to a different degree, that's sometimes why people do drugs. That's sometimes why, for some people, that's the reason why they get blind drunk they need an outlet. They need an escape. So yeah, if you're on the streets and it's cold and it's rainy and it's shitty, then maybe you just need actually taking the drugs. Probably one of the least of your problems right now. It's cold. You have your immediate survival to think about, right?
Yeah.
And
I mean, I've heard that in other countries, it even becomes an issue of like what to do with the bodies.
Yeah.
Where
sure.
It's like if people, we're assuming that these people are surviving the night, where
they're not always.
Right.
By definition, they can't all be surviving every night in the cold. It just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
Right. It's a bad problem, and why I'm talking about it is that there's a lot of disagreements on how to solve it. It depends on whatever administration happens to be, taking over that city, that town, that state, and how they want to solve it. And no matter what they do, another group is like, oh, we shouldn't do that. They're bad people. We need to arrest them and throw them in jail. Oh. Right?
Well, I'm not tasking you with solving homelessness.
Well, what I'm saying is that with money, with a lot of money, you can solve it however you want to try to solve it. To at least say you've tried this thing instead of
at least you tried.
instead of getting stuck in the politics of it and having to deal with like public funding and being like, does everyone agree? You're never going to get everyone to agree, and you're going to keep going backwards. You're going to keep going this way and then get pulled backwards. At least you can have a consistent agenda and stick to it and try it. Something that no one else will do, or because it's such a fraught public issue that it will always keep going back and forth, and you end up not going anywhere with it. I think.
What do you think? What do you think you would do?
I think homelessness.
Homelessness is the issue you want to tackle. How do you think you would address this with your money?
See, that's the other thing, is that you can't just buy up towns. You can't, the whole idea is that you can't. And there's so many different issues here, right? You have to separate the problems into the people that do want to
people who want to be rehabilitated, want to find jobs, want to live stable.
They want to be reintegrated into society. And I think those are probably the easiest people to work with because they want it and it's easier to help them. But then there are so many people that slip through the cracks because of mental illness.
Well, that's something they say. I don't know, like how the physics of this works, but if you're carrying someone, if they want to be carried, if they like wrap their arms around your neck or if they're helping you, it's like
then if 90%
easier than just carrying.
If they're a limp body is actually probably pretty hard to not getting back to the serial killer topic. It might be problematic.
You get a wheelbarrow in your kill kit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is a very fraught issue, and I don't necessarily know an answer to it. But I feel like that is a big enough problem and one that's not easy to solve.
Do you think you'd assemble a team? Like, what's your first step? You're sitting in the bar getting drunk. You make a phone call saying, I'm solving homelessness.
Solving homelessness. I think for something like that, you would need people with like housing and urban development experience. You would need people with a good background in social work. You would need people with a background of like mental health, right?
So you think you would start working with existing systems and integrating yourself into these systems? Or
see, here's the other problem is why staffing costs so much of money for charities is that if you want the best and brightest, because it's a tough problem, turns out the best and brightest, they're not two billionaires, right? They want money. That their motivation is not necessarily your motivation.
It doesn't work for Google.
It doesn't make them a bad person that they want to, make money for their family or whatever. Doesn't really matter what they want to do with their money, right?
Maybe they want to solve homelessness.
Yeah, maybe they want to solve homelessness, but they probably don't unless, and that's why I think billionaires get into philanthropy because they are now facing that issue where nothing matters anymore.
Well, I've heard a lot of young people talk about, I think it's called like effective altruism or something like that, where it's a strategy to just make as much money as you can as quickly as possible so that then you can spend it to try to help people and do good things.
That's kind of in the same way of, the same pragmatism as saying, let's start a big charity that pays ourselves 90. Again, I'm not even saying that in a bad way. That takes 90% of the overhead in order to continue doing what they're doing to donate the other 10%, right?
Yeah, because
you're saying the same thing. Essentially, it's like, I want to be pragmatic about it. I don't need to be doing it every single day, starting right now, because then I might not be effective at it. I may not have the means to change things if I don't focus on myself right now. Focus on, stacking that cash, whatever you got to do, right? Focus on earning those assets now so that maybe if you are a multi-billionaire, then you could solve that problem.
And people start to do interesting mental gymnastics where the idea of like, how do you fuel yourself? Like, how do you stop yourself from becoming one of those people that has just given up and is, laying, like sleeping all day, not doing anything? Like, you need some type of motivation, something to remember that life is worthwhile.
Need a catalyst to
you need a catalyst,
doing things, right?
And that catalyst can be anything. So people say, oh, well, I need to go on whatever expensive vacation as my catalyst to become a good worker so that I can make as much money as possible that I can have money.
I think that, and this comes down to back to what I was saying about being a little bit better every day. I think part of that is just like physics. I think inertia is really real when it comes to people, right? Going to the gym is easier. Going to the gym tomorrow is easier if I went to the gym yesterday.
Well, something I've heard with people that work out, a lot of people don't like taking rest days. If you're really in it, like even though what is optimal for your body is to take rest days and let your muscles rebuild and let yourself recharge, people just want to keep the momentum going. They're like, no, I got to keep going or else I'll lose it. Like
that's like, I get that, especially with things that are hard to do, not, hard to build a habit, right? It's about that inertia that you get from doing it every single day or every, X amount of days. You have to keep doing it. That's the hard part.
I don't take it anymore, but for a while I was prescribed Adderall. And
I've taken it.
Yeah. And I find, caffeine, also a stimulant, not quite as extreme. I'll still sometimes feel this effect where if there's something that I want to accomplish, whether that's building a shelf or painting a painting or just anything in my life that I need to get done, I will just push straight through. Be like, I am not stopping until this is complete.
Yeah. So, I haven't, I don't dabble with too many drugs in my life, and I haven't, but the ones that I usually always dabble with happen to be like nootropics. Yeah. Things like Adderall, things like
what classifies something as a nootropic?
It's that class of drugs where you think that it makes your brain work better.
Okay.
Right.
It's like an efficiency.
It is an efficiency drug. It is a drug it is trying to be that pill from Limitless. Right.
Yeah. I classify that as like a stimulant.
Yeah, no, I mean, they are stimulants, though. They are stimulants, but there's like a newfangled term that they like to call it nootropics.
I've heard that term thrown around a lot, and I always saw it.
And that you take it and you don't feel like you need to go outside and start screaming and jumping. You're not that kind of stimulant. You're mentally way more active, right?
Okay, so it's like
it's like an Adderall. Your brain is going 1,000,000 miles per second, you feel like. So Adderall, modafinil.
And those, like when you've taken them, you feel like it helps you push through to gain that momentum.
Oh, absolutely.
To keep that inertia.
Absolutely.
Flowing.
Especially in like technical fields where things can get a little bit of a drag, like software, right? Things like that. You can achieve a new level if the things that were boring are now so interesting. So interesting, you know?
I can see the code. The ones and zeros, they're coming to life.
Yeah. It's like Matrix. I don't even see code. It's just blonde, redhead, brunette, right? And he's just looking at the code going down the screen.
Yeah, that's pretty deep.
Yeah. But I mean, wow, how do we get off topic about homelessness? Yeah.
Well, we were talking about ways that we could. It's like, do you think taking Adderall would help you solve homelessness?
Might certainly help. I don't know, but
I don't know. Do you?
You know, the thing is,
see, my initial like gut response is that if you were to take an Adderall, you'd be like, homelessness is no longer an issue.
It just
like
a problem.
Catapults your consciousness into some higher ethereal level of like, oh, that.
I think the problem with homelessness is that it is a branch of another problem that we have, at least in the U.S., is that healthcare. Healthcare is kind of garbage. It's kind of incredibly expensive. It is the thing that is most likely for any of us to end up actually homeless. Homeless, right?
Oh, yeah, because it's so expensive.
It's so expensive. And now that you happen to be homeless and you have a lot of mental health issues, you don't have a support system, and healthcare is extremely expensive because our system is the way it's set up. And now who's going to help you, and how can they even help you? Right? Unless they actually have $1 billion and can be like, I'm going to help you and spend all this money on just you.
And I think there's like, I've toyed with this question so much, asking like, what does it really mean to be healthy? Of like, obviously there's the, like just not being sick while you're not coughing or like whatever, feeling achy or fever, you know, all these like classic symptoms. But then beyond that, like, does it mean feeling good, mentally healthy? Does it mean having, you know, relationships? Like all of these things that sort of go beyond the normal metrics.
It's a personal thing, right? It's a personal thing
it's
because
like,
you can't measure someone's definition for fulfillment.
I think, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs is pretty accurate in my opinion. As far as like basic needs being food and shelter, and then, you know, working your way up all the way to self-actualization.
Now, the thing is that once you achieve a certain thing, right, even if you start off at the bottom of that pyramid and you start achieving things, you achieve a better shelter, you achieve like food security and all these other things. I think the moment you get there and you achieve that, you are happy for a while. But I always think that happiness is kind of short-lived, and pretty soon you need the next thing on there. You need to start working on that next thing. Otherwise, you kind of hit a rut still, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it does, like there is no end to the evolution of needs, where it is initially, you know, competition just for food, but then competition evolves into, you know, like who has the most money or being most attractive for a mate, you know, all these like evolutionary desires that just spiral out of control and don't have a top limit.
No.
And then you can be caught so much in that game that you neglect the lower.
I think one of the problems, and I think I fall into this category in a big way, is that I don't know how to be satisfied, right? You can be satisfied for just a little bit, and then it's always, what's the next thing?
Yeah.
What's the next thing? And sometimes, like for me, I feel like maybe the next thing doesn't have to be linear. It doesn't have to go straight up. It doesn't have to be from where I am now, I'm going to make X amount more money. That's a linear increase, right?
Well, I like to,
What is a lateral? So there's infinite amounts of lateral moves you can make that shifts the paradigm that your brain isn't like used to.
Yeah, I like to say like it doesn't matter how fast I get there. It doesn't matter what's waiting on the other side. As Miley Cyrus would say, It's the climb.
It's the climb. Yeah,
It's the climb.
The philosopher Miley Cyrus once said.
I feel like there's a lot of philosophy to be found in pop music. Yeah. A surprising amount of philosophy to be found in pop music.
I mean, what do you think are modern day philosophers? Because you can't just be a philosopher anymore.
You could be a philosopher,
but
I mean, you're probably not going to make it.
No. So who are
philosophy
philosophers?
professors?
There are philosophers. Philosophers as a thing exist. As someone is a
artists.
philosopher.
I mean, I don't think they are constrained to a certain profession. Mm-hmm. I think there are philosophers who are writers, authors, actors, musicians.
So 100 years from now,
like mundane professions, I consider myself to be an amateur philosopher. I've written a book that is mostly philosophy, and I'm a pizza delivery driver. So,
but at some point, do you think in the future they're going to go back and they're going to find someone who was just really prolific on social media and be like, wow, this person, they just had the most fire memes all the time. So I think they were just truly just the mind of that generation. They didn't even know till they were gone.
Certainly like large pop culture icons can achieve that status. Mm-hmm. Like how the records will be maintained is interesting. Like, because already the amount of content that gets uploaded to like YouTube, for example, every day is more than someone could watch in a lifetime.
Yeah.
So right now, scouring through that content is impossible. It's not like there's one
unless you're AI.
Perhaps. It's not like there's one history book. There are, 10,000 history videos of, where are you going to pick? And of course, it's going to be like views and things like that, popularity metrics, to see what survives. But I think that's hard enough. Like now, like I wouldn't be able to tell you now, even who those people are. I also, kind of try to stay off social media for the most part.
For the most part, I do too. Try to.
Like, I don't know, maybe like Pete Davidson.
Okay, fair. Yeah, I mean,
like comedians. I think comedians. There are a lot of. I like Duncan Trussell a lot. I think Russell Brand was doing a philosophy thing for a while.
I like comedians actually, because in order to really make fun of the condition, just the human condition, you really have to kind of really understand the absurdities, right? And maybe that's what makes a good philosopher, is trying to understand all the things, all the human condition that you are also a part of. That is also a fatal flaw in you.
I have the Goodreads app on my phone.
I've seen that
for like keeping track of all the books that I read. And it recommended a book for me that I guess is trending or popular now. And it's Andy Warhol's autobiography. And I haven't read it yet. I don't know if I ever will, but I was just browsing the reviews for this book, and people were talking about how profound it is, and that his sort of attitude or his character was always very nonchalant, very flippant, very kind of like, nothing matters, a little bit nihilistic, but then really diving into that and seeing like how profound it can be, that he actually understands all of these vanity metrics that people are chasing are just that, vanity metrics, and it doesn't really matter. And the things that do matter are, much more present and like.
I feel like I always respect people a little more if they come off as being very irreverent and just not really caring, but they have to understand it. If you're just completely oblivious to it, that's something different. If you know the things that people are searching for and what people think you should care about, and you decide, I don't want to play that game, right? I don't want to play that game, then it's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, because everyone is playing games.
Yep.
When you look at it, that I found, there are infinite number of lenses you can look at this thing called reality through. One of them is through games. Everyone's playing games, trying to win resources, win approval, win attention, win all of these different things. And if you can see that and see what someone is striving for, like,
if you can understand someone else's motivation, I don't want to say manipulate, but it makes it easier for you to align your goals with theirs or help them achieve their goal, and maybe you can succeed together in a lot of things.
Well, that's
right?
an even bigger question of like, does free will exist? And if you understand someone's motivations, can you then manipulate them like a machine? I feel like I'm probably starting to sound like a psychopath.
I don't necessarily think that that's a statement on free will, but of course everyone has motivations. And the thing is, if I align my motivations with someone else's, they're going to want me to succeed because I've made it.
Absolutely.
I've tied our fates together, right?
Wow.
I tied our legs together and threw that anchor off the boat. We're going down together. So you better hope we can swim, right? I mean, that's kind of what it is, right? And I've always thought about that before, is that what you said is that we all see reality. Our realities are all a little bit different, right? How we see the rules in which the world works is always a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
And I always wonder, like, sometimes maybe total sociopaths, maybe they actually see the rules much clearer than someone who's not. Maybe they actually see all the rules. Maybe they aren't colored by the emotions.
Operating on just a higher level of awareness.
They are just looking at every situation that happens and analyzing this. This is what happens. These are the stimuli, and this is how the person responded to that, and just only going off of that. So they're not colored necessarily by, oh, well, this made me feel this way, so I lashed out in XYZ way. They don't necessarily, I don't want to say suffer from that, but they're certainly removed from that. And maybe that's why I'm pretty sure this is true, that they say that there is a much higher number of sociopaths in like executive roles, in C-suite roles.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Oh.
Well, that's interesting. And, there's a lot of angles to look at that from. I've contemplated that a lot. And, I have mentioned this a few times on the podcast. I think that, BuzzFeed has told me multiple times that I'm a psychopath because I drink black coffee.
I've heard that too. I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. Like it said, like, you're very serious, no frills. I'm like, damn, but what if I just like this? Come on.
And there is, like, I'll notice just from my day to day, like, depending on what I do, I will interact with the world differently. Like, if I like to jog, I'm a jogger. If I go for a 3 or 4 mile jog in the morning, and especially in cold weather, and I get out there and it's tough and it's cold and it's unpleasant and, my muscles are straining, and then I get back home, I take a shower and I go to work.
You feel really good.
I'm going to have such an
you
easy
feel
day.
Really good.
Everything
right?
is going to be so like you're saying after the, climbing the mountain, like it just doesn't matter.
Yep.
It's just, you see what's important and what's not.
Yep.
And everyone has different reference
Your perspective
points.
has changed.
Yeah.
Right. And in a way, for exercise and running, and as you're doing it, it sucks. Yeah. It sucks. And the more it sucks, the more the rest of your day is just like, dude, this is so much easier than how I woke up today. Like, I can't complain. This is fine. Like, work? No, who cares? This is no problem.
First time I ever did hot yoga, I thought I was going to die. And when I got out of the session, I was like, wow. Like,
everything is so great right now. Yeah. Like, I've never been better. That's the same type of, I hang out with some of my friends and they're like, we're going to do some type 2 fun.
Type 2?
Type 2 fun.
What is type 2 fun?
Well, type 1 fun is just fun. Everyone can have type 1 fun.
What
type
is that,
2,
like dancing?
Type 2 fun is, I remember I was having Thanksgiving one year. I was with a few of my friends in Wyoming, and it was literally Thanksgiving Day. It was snowing. It was just crazy snowing. And a few of us went out and we got on our skis, and it's the middle of the night. The ski resorts and stuff are closed, but the mountain's not closed. So what you can do while it's snowing and just horrid is you can just boot pack. You can just walk up this mountain.
So like no chairlift, no
ski lift, just headlamps on, our skis strapped to our back, our ski boots on, and we just walked up this mountain.
And how was it?
Oh, it sucked. It was freezing. It was cold. Every single step sucked. But when we came down, it was like, oh, this is kind of fun, but I am cold and kind of shitty. But I want you to know, when we went back into the house and turkey was ready, it felt so good.
What do you bring with you on an expedition like that? Do you just have your skis strapped to your back, headlamp?
So
do you have like a backpack?
So it's interesting because you have to wear
water or like what?
Definitely. Okay. So you definitely want to layer. So your clothing is one of the most important things because you don't want to be miles out and just be totally screwed, right? Yeah. And that's usually like wearing the wrong kind of clothes for something like that is how people, like amateurs, like who's never done it before and decide to do something kind of crazy. That's how they kind of end up dying.
Oh, because if your clothes get like, if you're wearing cotton and it gets soaked,
it's like
and
that
it
saying that
freezes
cotton
or something.
kills, is that because cotton, when you sweat through it, that it just stays wet. It just stays wet and cold, and that's it. That's
need, like,
now.
the wicking material.
You need moisture wicking, so that it goes from layer to the next layer to the next layer, and that moisture can leave your body, right? So wearing the right clothes, and then outside of that, backpack, and we had skis on top of that headlamp. It wasn't altogether like a very far trip, but it was like one of the steepest hills, and just walked up, and it was just, I remember it was just snowing. You could barely see the person in front of you. It was snowing that hard in Wyoming. And we boot packed like up there, and then we skied down. We only get one run unless you want to walk all the way back up again.
I mean, even just like, I'll go sledding at one of these, little like whatever hills that aren't even hills, and I'll be tired like walking up and down 3 or 4 times.
But I mean, this kind of fun is like the slow burn, because while you're doing it, and you're like, this kind of sucks, but I feel something. Like, it feels kind of good, but it totally sucks. Is it over yet? Oh my goodness, this sucks.
So you call that type 2 fun?
Type 2 fun. When you're having it, it doesn't feel like fun, but later on you're gonna be like, dude, remember that time we did that thing?
That's great.
Wasn't it stupid? Wasn't it fun? That's type 2 fun.
Hey, remember that time we solved homelessness?
I don't know if that's necessarily type 2 fun. But you look back on things like that and you're like, wow, it was hard. And that's the same thing I was talking about with passion, right? You do this thing, and while you're doing it, you may not be the best at it, but it's the fact that it's hard and you get better, and then you conquered it and you became good at it.
It's like a sense of purpose.
The sense of purpose. And because you went through those steps, and if you take shortcuts on that, you don't necessarily get the same payoff, right? If you've gone through those steps, those stages of competency towards doing a thing, you become passionate about it, right? And for this, if that same thing with type 2 fun, you do this kind of thing that's kind of fun, that's not fun right away, but you do it because it was hard. Because it was hard, and you knew it'd be kind of cool, and you knew that there was payoff there. When you're done, that fun, that satisfaction lasts, for me, sometimes it lasts months.
Oh yeah, I mean, it can last years.
Yeah,
certainly. There's things that I did probably when I was in high school that I still remember.
Yeah. I want to search for more things like that. Like in the unknown category, the things that I don't know that I'm going to remember forever. And it's going to be a slow burn for me for years. I want to fill my life up with those kinds of activities, those kind of pursuits, and with the people that I want to create those kind of memories with.
So something that I've found in my own life is the best way for me to find the unknown unknowns is through other people. When other people are sharing their experiences, or not even just sharing their experiences, but just having normal conversations or whatever, that is where I find the most unknown unknowns. Yeah. In other people, whether that's people that I meet randomly, like out at a bar, or even close friends that I've known for a long time will say something. I'll be like, wow, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Would you say that's similar for you?
I think it's very similar. I think a lot of that is that comes from other people's personal experiences, because how are you going to know that's this thing that is worth doing that you've never heard about, is going to make you feel this kind of way? Unless someone's like, I did this one thing one time, and honestly, it was just so cool. It was just so amazing, right? And just real quick, I remember we started off on this subject about Alaska. Yeah. At this point, all I've done is flex Alaska and didn't actually get into it. We went to this place called Homer Spit. Never heard of it. And it's not one of those places you really hear about all the time when you're thinking about Alaska. You're just, you hear about Alaska and you're like Denali, glaciers.
I don't even. Yeah. When I think of Alaska, all I think is snow.
So,
or cold,
this place called Homer Spit. It is like this little peninsula. It's like just 2 beaches on either side, and just one little peninsula that goes like maybe a mile, and it's just hanging out over the ocean. Both sides of you, the ocean. The width of this island, this peninsula, is maybe less than about a football field.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's a beach there. So the crazy thing is, you're surrounded on 3 sides with giant mountains with glaciers hanging on them.
Wow.
And golden hour, that sunset, the sky was red from 8 p.m. till about 2 a.m. It was this slow sunset that lasted 4, 5. I couldn't even tell you how long it lasted because the sun never actually fully went down. It was just there. The sky was red. There was glaciers all around you, and you were surrounded by the ocean.
Isn't there like a certain time of year where
it was like summer? Yeah. But it was like we were there like a little bit later summer, but it was still perfect. It was perfect. And you know what? There was no place to stay on there on that little strip, so just camped on the beach, made a fire. That's it.
Nice.
And I was like, this is it. Like, this is another one of those core memories that you're not going to forget. And I didn't know.
How long did you stay there?
A few nights. I think Alaska, I think we were there for just over a week. I think Homer, we were there for maybe 2 or 3 nights. I went back there again some other point in time, but it was rainy. But that memory was like insane.
A lot of times when I have an experience like that, I will think to myself like, wow, this is so good. Why would I ever leave?
Yeah.
And then I start planning like, well, I guess I'm moving here now.
I have a lot of friends like that are like, I love this place so much. Maybe I should just move there. And a lot of them do pull the trigger. But there's too many, and maybe this is a personal flaw. There's too many things out there to commit to one thing, to decide that I am the mountain man, or all I do is ski now.
Yeah.
All I do is climb now. All I do is this one thing, it's just like, there's so many more unknown unknowns. How do I know that, the one thing you don't get back is your time?
Exactly.
Like what you want to commit your time to, that's your real resource, right? Everything else, money, you'll do something, you'll work harder and you'll eventually make up that money back. But that time is,
ideally.
Finite. Yeah. Ideally, right. Ideally you'll find a way, but the time is one thing I guarantee you'll never get back. You'll never get back, right?
Spend it wisely.
You gotta spend it wisely, and that's sometimes why you can't commit too much time. Sometimes those core memories of those insane places, they were always just meant to be this ephemeral memory. Maybe if you stay there too long, it's just not as good.
Do you think like a week feels pretty ideal? Because a lot of times when I'll go to a place, I'll feel like, I had this idea like several years ago. I haven't really executed on it, but I had an idea in my mind that to like really know a place, to really like get to see everything there is to see, you can't always do it in a week. Because I have gone on vacations before or gone on trips to places where I've been there for a week, and right on like the second to last day or the last day is where we finally talked to the right people and got those unknown unknowns. Yep. They're like, what? Yep. You didn't go on this hike. You didn't go to this place. You didn't eat at this restaurant. I'm like, oh man, well, like if we ever come back, but it's like, when's the next time?
Yeah. When's the next time you're coming back?
Yeah. Like it could be never, could be a long time.
Do a good thing sometimes with some of these trips is that, I tried not to overplan. With that Alaska trip, I didn't even know where we were going. I showed up there and I'm like, okay, roughly this day we're going to be in this geographical 1,000-mile range. We'll figure it out. Well, so that forces you to talk to people. That forces you to go to, I think we were at like an oyster bar on the ocean, and we were like, all right, you work that half the room, I work this half the room. We come back and we talk about what our plans are.
That's amazing, actually, that you scouted for information.
It was this tiny little bar. I remember it was on like stilts hanging over the ocean in Homer, and it just had one big sign above it that said oysters. Oysters. I think if you go,
you like oysters?
I love oysters. Yeah. If you go on like Google Maps and go down Homer Spit, you'll find that restaurant. It is on stilts, a big wooden building, and it says oysters.
I was interviewing another friend of mine. And we got into the topic of like what your diet would be like as a billionaire. And she said, oh, I'm only eating oysters.
I think you can't. And the thing about what makes things good is the ephemeral nature. Sometimes you can't have too much of something. Otherwise, it just becomes your meal now, and whatever it is.
Yeah. If everything is, if everyone's super, no one is super.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the same thing about experiences. If you live every single day at that cool place, you just live there now. That's just home.
Every day is a mountaintop experience.
That's just home, and now everywhere else. Yeah, you just live on a mountain. Now, if you just live in that really cool place, now it just turns out everywhere else, this is home, and now everywhere else just sucks.
Well, I think there is still ways of like rekindling that kind of spark through sharing experiences. That's something I found like important. While I lived in Hawaii is I would discover a cool place, cool waterfall, cool like patch of coastline.
Yep.
Be like, wow, this is so great. This is so amazing. And then eventually it wears off. You know, I just live here now. And
it's the people that were sharing that experience with you. That
yeah,
really
I would
made
take
it.
people there and they would experience it for the first time.
And you get to relive it. And you're
Yeah.
like, yes,
Yeah.
this is what I feel. You get it now. This is how cool it is. This is how cool it is. Yeah.
But then we have to go back with, you know, a pineapple and then it never ends.
yeah. But that's the thing. Cause at some point you're like, again, finite time, can't keep going to this place. What's the next thing?
Right.
Is that going to be as good? Am I going to be able to recreate the conditions to make that scenario something I want to remember?
I also find myself in is like, you know, there's all types of like good experiences. So there is that like camping trip where you're alone or just a couple of close friends and you're experiencing nature together. But I also really love like big extravagant events.
Yeah.
Like festivals, music festivals, like I mentioned Burning Man earlier, just like huge things, like even something like the Super Bowl that's just like such a big cultural event,
Big cultural phenomenon. Everyone's
production.
doing it. Yep.
Like it's a very high value level production.
Yep.
That's like a good show, you know, a lot of memories there, a lot of things to experience. Where do you balance your time, or how do you balance your time of like, let's go on this private, intimate camping trip or this big, extravagant music festival?
I think it's variety. Not even that is that like your brain gets used to certain things. You can't just at an atomic level, your brain gets used to this. The stimuli no longer works. If you keep your life varied, keep your activities a little bit all over the place, you never know what to do, right? It's always going to be exciting for you.
Variety is the spice
of life, right? Yeah. And that goes back to like, not every moment can be an adventure, and not every moment necessarily should be an adventure. Otherwise, you're just a nomad.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
A nomadic life doesn't sound terrible.
Probably isn't terrible. I can promise you that a nomadic life is for less people than one would initially think. Everyone's like, oh, I think I can do it. I actually think most people can't do it.
Well, it involves a lot of planning. You are constantly planning where you go next. And
that's for a lot of people, that's pretty stressful.
Yeah,
right?
It's stressful and it's a lot of work and nothing is guaranteed.
I remember right when the pandemic started, everyone thought that they could van life. Right. And I remember just watching a bunch of YouTube videos about the amount of people that end up quitting van life because, wow, it actually kind of sucks if you don't know what you're getting into.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing. I saw a lot of videos of people in vans ending up in just like Walmart parking lots.
Yep. You gotta be.
Well, this is where I live now.
You're like, if you're the type of person that doesn't like to do things outdoors and doesn't like to experience those kind of things, then maybe it's not for you, because then you're just kind of living in a parking lot, right?
If you don't already have that lifestyle, probably.
Right, exactly. You have to enjoy those places that you're going to end up. Because I'll tell you what, if you only enjoy those kind of places, you know, when it's Memorial Day, right? You only enjoy going to those places when it's a long weekend and you happen to have that day off, then maybe that's not actually what you want. That's only because you don't have it that you want it that one time.
So I knew some people in Hawaii that were legitimately van lifers. Like, you know, it's much easier there than, you know, perhaps the continental United States, but it was still like stressful, and it totally flips your like logistics upside down of like, well, where's the nearest restroom?
Yep.
And it's like, well, I hope you don't need one.
Otherwise,
for the next
you're digging
3 hours.
holes. Yeah. Everything becomes, the little conveniences are no longer there.
And like, where are you going to cook your food? Are you going to cook your food? Are you going to eat raw food? Are you, you know, like what are you going to eat and where? And this constant just planning of like looking no more than like 3 hours into the future.
Survival becomes a thing.
It becomes
right?
survival at that point. Yeah.
Like at some point you're like, I've got a credit card in my pocket. You know, in this normal life that we live, you got a credit card in your pocket, you're going to be able to get some food. You won't really have to worry. Well, when the whole idea is that I'm out in the middle of nowhere and society is a little bit further away, I got to figure out my own needs, my immediate ones, right? Yeah. It becomes, but you know, the thing with that is that life, you become much more aware of life. It becomes much more aware.
It becomes much more immediate.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I want to do that next year. Oh, I'll try doing that next month.
You're not kicking your feet up all day, opining about like, oh, next summer I want to do this. It's like, no, I got to figure out some problems right now. Time slows down, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it slows down or speeds up. Time is like perception of time is an interesting thing. Looking back, it's always, it depends on what you've done.
Life always feels like it's gone by fast looking back, I think. Maybe if not, I don't know if that's true for everyone, but I think when it's easy.
Well, certainly when you've got a lot of novelty in your life and you're doing a lot of new things, that will make time feel slower.
Remember, like as a kid, you're like, as like a 6-year-old, you're like, this day never ends.
Yeah.
It never ends. I am going outside doing all these things, running around the woods. I come back and it's 1 p.m.
Right.
Because I'm learning new things. I'm seeing new things. And now it's just like,
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's Friday already?
It's already Friday. I've done the same thing all day long. It's already 5 o'clock,
Yeah, we've already been talking for close to 2 hours. Hour and 44.
Hour and 44 minutes. Time just flies. Yeah. It just really does. And I don't do this all the time, too. So it should feel slower. It doesn't.
Maybe. I mean, we're drinking some yerba mate. We got some caffeine in our system. How are you feeling? You want to keep going?
Up to you. I mean, it's kind of long. It's your show.
Well, 2 hours is around the limit I feel comfortable my computer is able to handle.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe we can wrap it up, and then if we ever want to come back to a part 2, we can.
Phenomenal.
You're welcome back anytime.
Yeah.
Do you have any parting words for the people? Anything you want them to know?
I think if you actually win $2 billion, it would be really sad if you just made it about all the things you want. And I'm not just saying that. Partially, I'm just saying that, but I'm also not just saying that because once you're done with all those things, your motivational structure is all fucked up. So, maybe we do stuff for other people for just a little bit.
Life's more about just yourself. Do something nice for someone today. This has been the time of your life. Thanks for watching, everyone.